Good morning, friends. Today is Thursday, day 39 out of our 40 days of knowing Jesus. And today we're going to start our last chapter together, the last chapter of Luke, chapter 24. And today we're going to cover verses 1 through 27. Our sweet treat today is that Jesus is the Messiah. Yesterday was a sad, hard day as we watched the crucifixion of Jesus. And as hard as that was, today's passage is equally as exciting. Yesterday we left off with Joseph and the women quickly preparing Jesus' body for burial. They didn't have much time because it was almost sundown, and sundown would mark the beginning of the next day. And the next day was the Sabbath, meaning they're not allowed under the law to work on the Sabbath. So they wouldn't be able to finish preparing his body. So they did the best they could in the short amount of time that they had. Today, Luke tells us that it's now Sunday, the first day of the week, and a group of women have come back to the tomb very early in the morning with more spices for Jesus' body. What they saw there, though, was not at all what they expected. When Jesus was placed into the tomb on Friday and his body had been prepared by the women, the Roman guards sealed off the tomb with a large stone. Guards were posted there at the stone so that nobody could steal his body. The stone was so heavy that it took several strong men to move it. Some of the research I did said that tombs were made in a way where there was like a track or a rut so that stone would roll right into it and kind of really seal it in place, lock it in place. So there's no possibility the stone could have rolled away or moved away or somebody could have bumped into it. When the women arrived, the guards were gone, the stone was rolled away, and the tomb was completely empty. As you can imagine, they were completely confused. They wondered what had happened to Jesus' body, who had taken it, why had he been moved. I just love the way things come full circle in the story of Jesus' life. Remember 2 days ago, we talked about how the crowd had taunted Jesus and dared him to save himself using the exact same words that Satan had used to tempt him when he was in the wilderness. And then yesterday we discussed how Jesus' cousin Zechariah was a priest and had gone into the Holy of Holies. He had been chosen on the Day of Atonement to go past the curtain into that holy place. And then yesterday, when Jesus was crucified, at the moment of his death, we learned that that curtain in front of the Holy of Holies was torn from the top down. And now today, we see that the messengers used to announce the birth of Jesus to the lowly shepherds has now come full circle again and returned to announce his resurrection to a group of lowly women. Now, you may say lowly women. Some of them actually were pretty well-to-do, right? Well, yes, some of them were, but they were women. And so in that culture, in that society...
Sorry, I'm having trouble here.
So sorry, my watch just scared me. Oh my goodness, sorry. So women in that culture were considered low. They were not revered or admired. And so they were the last people that anyone important would come to bring news to. Okay, so Luke says 2 men in shining garments are standing before the women outside the tomb. The angels ask the women, "Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He's not here. Remember, he told you that he would rise again on the 3rd day." The angels almost seem shocked that the women have forgotten this very important piece of information that Jesus had given them. Suddenly, the women remember. They turn from mourning to laughing. That's what happens when we remember God's promises. I don't know how many times in my life I have been in the worst place imaginable in my heart and mind. And then I remember one of God's promises, and it turns my mourning into gladness. So the women run to tell the now 11 apostles and some other women who are with them what they had seen. But the apostles, they don't believe the women. It seems everyone has forgotten Jesus's words. Peter even takes off and runs to the tomb, and when he sees that it's empty, he walks away completely confused. In verse 13, Luke tells us that later that same day, 2 of Jesus's disciples or followers were walking down the road toward a neighboring village. Now, these are not 2 of the main 12. These are just 2 of the many disciples and followers that had been with Jesus. We don't know much about these 2 disciples, and we only know one of their names. But they were talking to each other about everything that had happened, and suddenly Jesus himself appears on the road with them. Now, isn't it just like Jesus to appear before the lesser men instead of the greatest? But Luke says that they were kept from recognizing him. God supernaturally kept them from physically being able to recognize him with their eyes. As they walk, Jesus asks the disciples what they're talking about and why they're so sad. One of the disciples, a man named Cleophas, looks at him and says, "Are you the only person who doesn't know what's happened here in Jerusalem over the past 3 days?" Jesus lets on as if he doesn't know and wants to see what they tell him. So this is what they say. "The things concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to his death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, today is the 3rd day since these things happened. Yes, and certain women in our company who arrived at the tomb early, they astonished us. When they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen visions of angels who said he was alive. And certain of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see his body." Jesus turns to them and says, "O foolish ones, you're slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have proclaimed would happen." And then Jesus teaches what has to have been the greatest Bible story ever told. He starts with Moses and he recites to them what every single prophet has ever said about Jesus. Today's sweet treat is that Jesus is the Messiah. He's the promised deliverer of the Jewish nation, and he came to deliver me and you. He is the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. He is all that the prophets said he would be and more. He is all that we need. I hope you are pondering these words in your heart as Mary did. I hope that you are thinking about what it meant for Jesus to make the sacrifice, and even more, what it means for him to have risen. Our King is alive. We should not be looking for the living among the dead. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you back here tomorrow on Good Friday for our last passage reading together. Have a great day.